afternoon, Councillor Ridgway. Chair, you can start the meeting. It's live.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Well, welcome councillors to this meeting of the Standards Committee. It's Wednesday the 1st of July 2020. This is a public meeting being streamed live to YouTube and via the council's website. The meeting is also being recorded for the purposes of the minutes. I've been advised that the live stream is now up and running. If for any reason the public can no longer hear or see the meeting over the live stream, we will adjourn until the connection has been re-established. Can I ask the Governance Officer to explain the procedure for this meeting?
Thank you, Chair. Microphones should remain muted at all times unless a member has been called on to speak by the Chair. This is to minimise background noise. A member should leave their cameras switched on. A member wishes to speak on an item or during the debate, please indicate this by unmuting your microphone and raising a hand. You may also use the chat function to type speak. Voting will be done by a simple show of hands, which will indicate that the committee is in agreement. Parish councillor representatives and independent persons aren't voting members, so they won't participate in any votes. If you are disconnected from the meeting, please try to rejoin as quickly as possible. If you have any technical difficulties, please contact one of the meeting facilitators as indicated on the meeting access details. If you're about to speak, the meeting will wait for a few moments for you to rejoin. And just for clarification, today in the meeting we have the Chair, Councillor Armitage, Councillors Ancliffe, Kerry, Liggett, Ridgway, Rouse, Ruff and Shipman, and we have the Monitoring Officer Sarah Sternberg, the Deputy Monitoring Officer Victoria Dawson, the Governance Manager Nicola Kelper, and myself, Amy Bryan as Clerk.
Right, if we can go to item 1. Can the Governance Officer please advise if there have been any apologies for absence?
Yes, Chair, we've received apologies from Councillor Rowe and also from Parish Councillors Pat Coleman and Derek Skinner.
Thank you. Are there any more apologies? Councillors who wish to submit apologies on behalf of an absent member, please turn your microphones on now.
No members have indicated they wish to speak, Chair.
Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. If any members do have any interest to declare, can you please turn your microphones on now?
Chair, no members have indicated they wish to submit a declaration of interest.
Thank you. So we'll move to item 3, minutes of the last meeting. Can we agree that the minutes of the last meeting were a true and accurate record?
Second those.
Right. Can we have a vote then, please?
Yeah, that's carried.
Thank you, members. That's been agreed. We move now to item 4, emergency delegations, and I would ask Sarah Sternberg, the Monitoring Officer, to give this report.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, apologies. I've been unable to produce a written report for this. Therefore, I'm going to take you through the delegations, but I will produce a written report next time, which will also include their use. As it became clear we were going into lockdown and that there wouldn't be member meetings for a while, we put a list of emergency delegations together. The intention was to keep the business of the council going where there were no meetings. It was initially for 3 months and has been renewed until the 31st of July. I will be asking the leader to extend this just as a backup measure for virtual meetings. The list of delegations themselves includes a number of areas: contracts and contracts variations, disposals of land above the key decision level, various licensing hearings, approvals of policies and strategies, approval of the annual governance statement, and the statement of accounts, write-offs of debts above £3,500, 6 months absence by members where there's non-attendance for 6 months. This can be dealt with by delegation. The calendar meeting and constitution change. We also covered the specific delegation to enable environmental health to deal with the COVID regulations and to enforce. And during the period, a new director joined us, Jill Callingham, Director of Growth and Economic Development. So we've added to the second round of this, we added a couple of delegations for her to do with rent-free periods at business premises and RIPA authorisations. As I say, a full report will appear next time. It's not been tremendously used. However, no, that's all I wish to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? No? Okay.
No questions from them.
Thank you. We'll move to item 5, the review of the Constitution. Now I'd ask the Governance Officer, Nikki Calver, to give her a report.
Thank you, Chair, and apologies for the late circulation of the report to members for today's meeting. So the report that has been circulated to you in your supplementary packs is the first of a series of reports that are presented throughout the year to the Standards Committee. This brings suggested revisions to the Constitution for your consideration. Following Standards Committee scrutiny of the items presented, you can then make recommendations on to full Council for adoption. It's suggested that this year we take 2 sets of revisions to Council, the first one in November 2020 and then again in May 2021. Referring to the report at 1.2, it sets out the current list of areas identified for review. And then at 1.3, the table shows when officers aim to bring them forward to you for consideration. So this in turn, of course, informs your work plan for the year ahead. You can amend the list at any time. It's a live document, so if you have any suggestions, please bring them forward either in this meeting or at any time. For this meeting in particular, we're bringing forward 2 new items for your consideration. The first being the Housing Management Board Terms of Reference, and the second one, the Town Fund Board Terms of Reference, which are attached as Appendix 1 and 2. These terms of reference currently aren't in your Constitution. However, we deemed it good practice to bring these documents to you for your awareness and acceptance. So if you wish to suggest any changes, these can be incorporated, and any comments you have, we can feed back to the officers who manage these meetings. At 1.4 within the report, it sets out a list of those items that were taken to the virtual meeting of Annual Council, and that went without coming through the Standards Committee first. And these were made in order so that the Council could operate effectively during the lockdown period. And these are attached as a final appendix for your consideration. You'll notice within that, that final appendix, there's reference to the ward member changes at Planning Committee. And there's been some discussion about this, so you'll be aware that the changes agreed as per the appendix on this matter were rescinded by delegated decision in advance of Planning Committee yesterday. We are proposing, therefore, that this area of the Constitution in particular is brought to an informal meeting of the Planning Committee, followed by a special meeting of the Standards Committee to discuss this item specifically around the September time, I think. I'm happy to take any questions, Chair, or assist with any queries that members may have.
Any questions?
Councillor Ross Shipman's indicated he wishes to speak, Chair.
Councillor Ross Shipman.
I think that that particular item you just mentioned that we're having this special meeting about in September, I think that's raised to me a bigger issue of what's happening with how things are coming through standards and ending up in full council. Because if you remember rightly, when at the point in which full council where this was voted through, I mean, it's something I objected to in the meeting, because there's things that when they are discussed in full council, they are portrayed as though the full standards committee agreed to every single item within that particular report or whatever it is that comes to council. And that's just not the case, because even if you took the last standards committee, and it's not in the minutes actually, which I probably should have raised that earlier, but again, at that meeting, I was raising the problems with how things are coming through, and that they can have a massive knock-on effect to the full council. I mean, the fact that, David said back to me, the fact that not one single councillor that was on that planning committee realised what the result of passing that thing was in full council sends such, it's a farce really, because how many there's 53 councillors and not one councillor saw that coming and the knock-on effect of that coming. And yet people still voted it through in full council. And until it became at the actual planning committee and everyone went, oh, we actually got that massively wrong. And people realised that what they were doing was removing councillors having a say in the planning committee for their own ward, which I think is a disaster.
Well, I think it was brought up mainly to protect councillors, but we are going to review all this, as we've already said, and we'll be presenting it probably in September, when everybody has had a chance to have a look at it, and then we'll bring it to standards and we'll decide what we're going to do. In the meantime, I understand that the present one has been rescinded, so we've reverted back to the old system, which we've already was implemented yesterday at planning. Could I ask Sarah Sternberg to come in on this, please?
Yes, Chair, thank you. Just to confirm that, yes, the provision has been suspended until both Standards and Planning Committee have considered it. So on the particular issue, that's all I wish to say. However, I did wish to give some comfort in relation to matters going direct to Council. This was a one-off occasion. It was because of the situation we were in with coronavirus, the extra work put on us, the fact that meetings weren't taking place of all the committees, etc. It is unlikely to happen again, and the normal situation, which has always been the case previously, will be reverted to, that Standards Committee will see these things first. The other thing to say is about representation, what Standards Committee thought about any proposal. Yes, if the Standards Committee votes a particular way, even if one member votes against it, we will always say this was supported by Standards Committee, because clearly that was their decision. I accept there's a point about adding into the minutes and making sure that any objection or refusal was also put to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that.
Chair, Jackie Ridgway wishes to speak, Chair.
Oh, thank you for that. Can I just, through the chair, you said that it was rescinded for yesterday's meeting, but I beg to differ, it wasn't, because the councillor that was actually supposed to be the voice wasn't allowed to actually sit on the bench as a committee member. She could only sit as a member of the public. So I don't think it was rescinded for yesterday.
I think it was, and perhaps I can ask Sarah Sternberg to go through the actual rules, which are the rules, which have nothing to do with the rescinding of this particular item. Okay, Sarah.
In relation to the particular requirement of ward members not to vote on planning committee for the items in their own ward, that was suspended by DD and is by delegation, and is currently suspended until members of Standards and Planning Committee have considered the issue. That was done in advance of yesterday's Planning Committee. I didn't attend Planning Committee, but I know that the governance manager was there. Maybe she could help with this bit about what the members thought.
Yes, thank you. So Councillor Huckabee at Planning yesterday spoke against an application and therefore predetermined herself, and therefore she indicated that she would not be voting on that item.
Is that clear to you?
Chair, I think the Chair of Planning, Councillor Diana Ruff, indicated she wished to speak.
Thank you, Nikki.
Okay.
Yes. Through the chair, thank you, Nikki. I was just going to say the same issue. Councillor Huckabee had already predetermined her objection before we went into the meeting. That's why she wasn't allowed to vote, but she could have her say.
Hello, had a break of transmission. Sorry about that. Right. Are there any more questions on that?
I think Councillor Rushton would like to speak.
Okay, Councillor Shipman, off you go.
I just wanted to ask, you know, this particular item, who was it that brought this forward? And would it help in future if, let's say, if something's an officer request coming to standards and something's one of the groups or a particular councillor that wants something changed in the constitution, would it help that we actually know where those changes are coming from? Because I think that it potentially makes a massive difference, actually, who's the one that's trying to push this forward, if we actually have that information in front of us when we're making a decision to council.
Yeah. Well, do you want to go first, Nikki?
I was going to offer members in 1.3 in the table that we have, we say the area of review, the lead officer and the date for consideration. A simple remedy to that would be adding an additional column in then to say where the idea originated, if that would assist.
Can do that.
Okay. Okay, well, I'd like to move on now to item 7 and look at the LGA
we
model
haven't had
code.
a vote. I don't think we've had a vote,
Sorry.
Chair.
Okay. Could we have a vote on that, please? Could members please show?
Chair, that's carried.
Okay. Right. Item 6, Gibson Hospitality Review. Could we have that about the result of the review, please?
Chair, that's me. Apologies to members. With the consent of the chair in advance of the meeting, this item has been withdrawn and will be presented to you at the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you for that. Right, item 7, the LGA Model Code of Conduct Consultation. Could the Governance Officer please present this report?
Yes, Chair, thank you. This is a report to inform the committee of the LGA's consultation on the model mode of conduct and to provide an opportunity for the committee to raise any comments that officers can submit in response to the consultation. The consultation started on the 8th of June and runs until the 17th of August. The draft model code of conduct is attached to the report at Appendix 1 and a comparison with the Council's current code is attached to Appendix 2. The draft model code does not differ significantly in content to the local code already in operation, although some of the language used is different and I would say it is more succinct. I would draw your attention to the LGA has drafted the model code incorporating recommendations from the Committee on Standards in Public Life's recommendations on local government ethical standards. If these are adopted and incorporated, it would mean the code applies to members where they are acting or claiming or giving the impression that they are acting in public or in their capacity as a member or representative of the council. So that would be a change. A final version of the model code is expected sometime in the autumn, and once we have that and it's been published, we will be bringing this back to the committee for you to consider whether to adopt the model code, make changes to the existing code or something in between. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Any questions? No? Well, I'll move on to item 8, the work programme. Could the Governance Officer please present the report?
Thanks, Chair. I'll take this one. So you have your work programme, which is a live document. It sets out the plan for work for the forthcoming year. You can add to this and make changes as you see fit. So if members are happy with the document, then the recommendation would be for acceptance today.
Okay. Are there any questions on the report first?
No members have indicated they wish to speak on this, Chair.
Okay, well, could we have a vote on this, please? Could we please show of a hand in favour?
That's carried, Chair.
Thank you. Item 9, any urgent business? I've no urgent items for today's meeting, and that leaves it to let me know the date of the next meeting. Perhaps Nicola could tell us when we're going to have the next meeting.
Thank you, Chair. So it's likely that your next meeting may be a special meeting to consider the item as we discussed in regard to the ward councillor voting at planning committee matter. We will set up a date for you and we'll be in contact with all of you to agree that. Your next scheduled meeting will take place on the 30th of September, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, and that is at 2 o'clock, is it?
Yes, Chair.
Okay. Well, can I thank the members for their attendance today, and I now declare the meeting closed. Thank you.
Councillor Ridgway, I think, wants to speak.
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Just a point of interest. Well, I'm looking at on the front sheet that we get, where it says members of the committee, and we have them in political boxes. I always thought that the standards and planning was an apolitical group. So really, I think, you know, putting that on the front of the sheet makes it very political. And as far as I'm concerned, it should be apolitical. So I am asking the committee if we can just have it where it just says members of the committee and everybody's names on the front sheet without saying what political group they're in.
Well, I'm looking at the minutes for the 19th of February, and they're all mixed up on that.
No, I mean on the very front sheet that we get with the North East Derbyshire, it's on the public pack, the public document pack that we can print off, which Sarah sends us. We have in 3 boxes, we have the Conservatives, Labour and Liberal Democrats. Now, as I say, I always thought planning and standards were a political committee, and I really think for it to be an apolitical committee where we're working across the board as a united front, then we should be showing that we're a united front and not 3 different political parties. Okay,
well, I take that on board.
Chair, if I might, yes, we'll make sure that happens for the next one and afterwards. Thank you. It's a good point.
Is that okay for you?
Yeah, that's fine. Can I also ask that it's done for planning as well? Because again, it happens on the planning one, and the planning is again an apolitical cross-party committee. And I just think, you know, hopefully it just shows that we are working more in an alliance than actually as 3 different, you know, 3 or 4 different sort of political parties. Certainly my views.
Yes. Could we agree on that then?
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be no problem. We'll sort that.
Okay. So, if there are no more...
Apologies, Chair. Councillor Rossip is indicating he would like to speak.
Okay, Ross.
Just to lead on from what Jack is saying, I don't understand why it's not that on all the agendas, because ultimately, surely we're all making a decision on what's good for residents in North East Derbyshire, rather than what our political parties are telling us to do. I would have hoped it so anyway.
If I might, Chair, I take the point. I will have a look at the other agendas, but certainly when it comes to council, I think it's necessary to show the political groups on that occasion. But I'll look at the others, and where we think it's appropriate, we will do the same thing.
Okay. Is that okay, Councillor Shipman?
That's brilliant. Thank you.
Okay. Right. Well, if there's no other matters, I will now declare the meeting as closed.